Considering last week's topic focused on social determinants of health, it's important that we also talk about community engagement. If we want the community to adopt and accept any type of program or intervention we're developing, it's important that we work with them from the very beginning. That way, we can make sure we include their priorities, their preferences, their voices, and their cultural practices in the design of any intervention or program that we develop.
In general, community engagement includes the generation of ideas, equal contributions to decision making, and the sharing of responsibility. As public health practitioners, we hope to develop a relationship with the community, together identify common interests, together develop shared ways to address our concerns or problems, and also together agree on the costs, benefits, and perceived risks. I can't say it enough, compensation is key. As a public health practitioner hoping to engage and work with the community, we know that this takes a lot of time, and it's fundamental that we find a way to compensate our community partners appropriately. So it's very important that from the very beginning, we're clear about the goals and purpose. And when you first begin working with the community, you need to come prepared to answer any questions. There might be hesitancy on the part of the community, and know that it will take a long time. I can't emphasize it enough. If you're conceiving of a project you'd like to work on, it's very important that you engage with the community on day one and you come to them with a clean slate. The first conversation should consist of finding out what their most pressing needs are. What do they view as the biggest health challenges in their community? Perhaps it's more upstream issues that are pressing versus what your project idea might consist of. So how are you going to address those more pressing upstream issues that they're concerned about? It's not uncommon that you might hold a community dialogue about your topic of choice and find out that crime and unemployment are more pressing needs for the community. So this process is crucial, revealing, and it could take a lot of time. It's very important that you do your homework and you understand the community's culture, their networks, their economic conditions, politics, history, and their perception of you. This is where qualitative and quantitative data to understand the community comes in, and utilizing the socioecological framework to understand influences within the community at every level that can impact behavior change. It's very important that you go to the community, you establish relationships, you build trust with formal and informal leadership, and seek commitment from partner organizations. It's important to meet them in their community. This alone establishes trust and helps you get to know their community better. On all the projects I've worked on in the red light district in Tijuana, we always meet at their agencies, places that are convenient for them, and this helps us get to know them better, and it helps build trust again. Community collaboration requires long-term commitment and flexibility. In order to develop a true partnership, it's very important that we focus on the community's strengths, resources, and assets. I think that traditionally there's this top-down approach that we want to kind of flip on its head and look at communities instead of looking at communities in terms of identifying their problems, which can be seen as demeaning or disempowering. We want to look at communities in terms of their strengths, resources, and assets as sources of power that can enable them to improve their determinants of health. Bioethics, this is something fundamental to any research being carried out, and I know that you will address this in another class. Most research grants at minimum federally funded research require that an institutional review board ensure that risk to participants is minimized in your study, program, or project. These reviews address risk to participants, procedures for collecting and protecting data, the strength of the scientific design, and informed consent. There's also a push right now to consider relationships among partners affiliated with any program or research project. There are many benefits of community engagement. If you develop an agenda together, this helps center and focus the project. all of that will improve design and delivery. Working with the community helps you understand the community better, which in turn influences design, delivery, and how well the intervention or program will be received. Working with the community helps us look at how the community feels ownership of the project. If they're involved from the beginning, they're going to be just as excited to learn about the findings or outcomes of the project, and this will help promote lasting changes. Working with the community helps improve the consent process and resolve any ethical issues or concerns. Having the community involved in the project helps improve knowledge and skills of the community, also might lead to more financial support or future collaboration. And it might make the community more receptive to projects and research and its benefits moving forward. And if the program or intervention is successful, maybe it'll be generalizable to other communities. And ultimately, community organizations will increase their knowledge, and that might lead to a higher profile in their community. And ultimately, you will develop effective, culturally appropriate programs and ones that have lasting results. Community organizing recognizes that in order to change, we all must feel a need for change, and that we are more likely to do so when we are involved in group learning and decision making. That's a quote from Meredith Minkler, who is one of the key pioneers with community-based participatory research. So community engagement involves a lot of time and energy, and I jokingly say coffee. I think it's very important that you take time to break bread and build relationships with your community partners and your community members. You need to be flexible, humble, patient. At all of my international meetings, my colleagues and I always take time to share a cup of coffee, have lunch or breakfast together, and get to know each other as individuals with families and pastimes. And so I think this is an important element in terms of relationship building and developing a strong connection with your community. Who should be involved in this process? There's terms such as targets of change and agents of change. Targets of change are those who the intervention or program is created for. In this class, we are calling that our priority population. Agents of change, those are individuals that influence policy or public opinion. There's influential people, those could be directors and staff at organizations that work with the community. It could be the business community, the faith community, and then of course there's interested members of the community members themselves. So how do we engage our community members? It's very important that you take the first step, which is defining your stakeholders. Who is this intervention or program for, and who are your potential partners that are going to work with you on this project, and who benefits, who doesn't benefit from this intervention? It's important to understand your entire community. And you can do this by conducting an environmental scan. Who's doing this work already? What can I learn from them? How can we partner? Reach out to agencies and organizations, and then convene your stakeholders and create a plan together from day one. Community health assessments. Many public health departments and hospitals are now starting to conduct community health assessments in an effort to address a community's assets, needs, priorities, service provision. This also helps them set goals and determine the direction of local initiatives. I say they're beginning to do this, but I think this has been going on for quite some time, at least a decade. But in my career, I'm seeing it more and more frequently, and it's often a requirement for accreditation as a local public health department or a hospital. Collective impact, this is another term that you'll probably hear more and more frequently. It's a commonly used approach to encourage multi-sector engagement, creating a common vision and working towards supporting the health of a community in all aspects of society as a mechanism to achieve better outcomes in dealing with community health problems. So while this is still new, the theory is that large-scale social change comes from better cross-sector coordination rather than from the isolated intervention of individual organizations. Live Well San Diego. If you are here in San Diego, you might hear about this initiative. It began in 2010, and it was adopted by our Board of Supervisors, and it's using the collective impact approach. It's a vision for a region that is building better health, living safely, and thriving. Again, it's just an illustration of collective impact in which businesses, individuals, governments, schools, and everyone shares the same vision and commits to doing their part in improving the lives of 3.3 million individuals living in San Diego. And these are the references I used for this week's brief lecture.